And the learning curve never stops. It goes on because the more you dig, the more you have questions, and the more you learn, and the more you see the potential of Bitcoin. So if you look at the last 10 years, 15 years, 10 years, or 5 years, or even 2024, simply the best performing asset globally. Out of 15 years, there are only 3 years where Bitcoin declined. Otherwise, it was always positive. I recommend to my friends to, first of all, study Bitcoin, number one. Number two, decide how and where to buy it, because it's not obvious. And number three, how much to allocate to it. It's a $2 trillion, and in the history of mankind, never an asset which reached 2 trillion went out and disappeared, definitely. I think we have a different game, and to be honest, I'm shocked by the resilience of the Bitcoin price the last couple of weeks, when the S&P and the Nasdaq declined by 5%, one of the few times in history where individuals can get ahead of Wall Street and banks and institutions.
Selim, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Great to meet you finally face to face.
I know, exactly. Guys, we should have been into a Maybach, but the destiny had something else for us planned. So welcome to the studio.
We'll do it another time.
Exactly. Round 2 will be on the Maybach.
Definitely.
Your resume is incredible. I mean, ex-CEO for Red Bull, North America, Asia. You've done so many things in your life. So for those people that don't know you, do you mind to give us an intro and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, a very short background. So I started my career with Procter & Gamble in Geneva, the European headquarters, working in marketing. It's a fantastic school. Then in 1998, at a very early stage of the launch of energy drinks, I moved from Procter & Gamble to Red Bull. It was really the very, very beginning of energy drinks. And there were so many concerns at that time about energy drinks. Similar to the rumors we've been hearing about Bitcoin.
Yes.
Spent 12 years with Red Bull, worked in Europe, Middle East. Then I ran Asia Pacific out of Japan, Tokyo. Then the last couple of years at Red Bull, I was CEO for North America, based in Santa Monica until 2010, when I decided to move to Dubai and to the Middle East. And I joined a private equity company, took a family-owned business. It was a 50-year-old business, transformed it, improved it, made my IPO 6 years after taking it over, listed the company in Saudi Arabia, and then continued running it until a couple of months ago, when I decided to step out and to focus on something which I love, which is, corporate governance, sitting on boards of family-owned businesses, private equity-backed entities, or private or publicly listed companies, and some startups. So I'm an independent board director today, enjoying the mix of industries, the mix of people on different boards, and trying to help add value at the board level. And this is where there is somehow a fit between my appreciation of Bitcoin, my love of Bitcoin, and my role on boards. How can companies and corporations adopt Bitcoin on the balance sheet? That's a very interesting topic for the future.
How have you gone into Bitcoin? How have you discovered it?
I first heard about Bitcoin in 2016. I was at a wedding in Turkey, and a young nephew in the family came to me at that time. He was like 26, 27 years old, telling me about Bitcoin. He did a PhD on Bitcoin at that time. And he told me in 2016, Bitcoin will reach $100,000. At that time already, I didn't pay attention. I was so busy with my full-time CEO role, and I didn't have the need to listen to something else. And maybe I've heard it's a potential Ponzi scheme. A couple of years ago, in 2019, I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., where somebody went on stage and spoke more about Bitcoin. And then it was a wake-up call for me. I went back, started studying it, learning more about it, and I realized it does take a lot of work and efforts to understand Bitcoin. And since then until now, I spent hundreds, maybe thousands of hours reading books, listening to podcasts, attending multiple Bitcoin conferences, and the learning curve never stops. It goes on, because the more you dig, the more you have questions, and the more you learn, and the more you see the potential of Bitcoin. And we are still today at a very early stage.
I completely agree. It's difficult to send a message to someone because we're saying, hey, this is the beginning, and they see the price at 80, whatever thousand as we speak, and they can't comprehend. But if you look at the market cap itself, you can understand easily, like you said, we are in the beginning. Where do you see Bitcoin? Is it more like a store of value? Is it a currency? It's a bit of both?
For me, so far, it's a store of value. If I look at the performance of Bitcoin, the 50% CAGR the last 15 years. So if you look at the last 10 years, 15 years, 10 years, or 5 years, or even 2024, simply the best performing asset globally. Out of 15 years, there are only 3 years where Bitcoin declined. Otherwise, it was always positive. So it's a store of value. I think, and I hope in the future, it can become a medium of exchange. It's starting today, and I saw some news yesterday. The retail chain in Europe, Spar,
Yep, I've seen.
is starting to test Bitcoin, and they have like more than 30,000 outlets around the world.
Yeah.
So we had the same article, and I was really excited. This is really the very beginning of adoption, because I believe in like 5 years, 10 years, this will be like very common to have Bitcoin in supermarkets, in retail outlets. And the beauty is we are really experiencing today the birth and the buildup of this beautiful asset.
I agree. And if you look back into history, for example, you can see that anything has started as a store of value collectible first. Like the thing that you exchange on a daily basis, it's a consequence of something you believe has value. So people are so impatient, and it's like, guys, patient, like first we have to determine that is a collectible or has value. Then we're going to build stuff on top. We were discussing on the way to the studio, like the internet had the same approach. Like in the beginning, do you really think people knew about Wi-Fi? No, they had HTTP, FTP, IRC, those foundational protocol. They allow us to build on top things that we now use. And when you go into a cafe, you ask, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? So I think Bitcoin is laying the foundation now for us to then build God knows what in 10 years. So I agree with you 100%. Do you think nowadays, you mentioned store of value, and I completely agree. I also see Bitcoin as a store of value for now. Do you think it's a good way to fight inflation? Some people argue you have gold, you have real estate, you have the stock.
I recommend to my friends to, first of all, study Bitcoin, number one. Number two, decide how and where to buy it, because it's not obvious. And number three, how much to allocate to it. I never recommend them to buy because it's a never-ending discussion. And very often, the criticism I hear are from people who never studied or understood Bitcoin. So when I hear, different, things like it's for drug dealers or people or terrorists or whatever, I tell them, guys, please hold on, do your homework, and then come back with arguments. And then they stop, they stand, and they say, you're right, Selim, I didn't study it. And I've been recommending a simple step to buy the Bitcoin Standards. It's a fantastic book translated to more than 50 languages, I think, around the world. And I tell them 80% of the book is about the history of money, which is very interesting. You will learn something anyway. And 20% only is about Bitcoin. So I recommend this step. And then later on, I tell them, if you want to have an allocation, do just 1%, 2%, try it, test it. Like how we started at the beginning. And then over time, when you experience it, you see the results, you see the performance, you can decide to raise your allocation. Even today, BlackRock has allocated 2% of their model portfolio to Bitcoin globally. And I think, many financial advisors, for financial advisors, the last couple of years, it was maybe risky to recommend Bitcoin. Today, it's risky to not recommend Bitcoin. And I think it's risky for people to completely disregard a $2 trillion asset growing at a 50% CAGR. Just dip your toe, have a small allocation, and then try it and see it. And nobody who bought Bitcoin lost money over a 4-year period. Just puts on the side some money which you don't need, put it there and watch it.
We have a saying in Italian, which doesn't make any sense, I guess, in English, but we are saying you can't have the barrel full and the wife drunk, right? Which sounds like la botte piena la moglie ubriaca, which means if you want to have gains, you have to put the study, proof of work, right? It teaches us in the Bitcoin white paper itself, you have to put the work. There is no other way around it. And people sometimes, and by the way, I was one of them. I'm not here pointing fingers. When I got into Bitcoin, it's because I wanted to become stupidly rich. And I didn't even study anything. I just randomly purchased this thing because I saw an opportunity. So I'm not judging, I understand. But at some point, if you really want to take control of your finances and you want to be free, you have to put the work. And I know there's going to be a horde of people jumping in at 150, at 200,000. They'll buy the top because they FOMO into this, and they'll sell when it drops 50%. Because you know how it feels like. I know how it feels like. Some of you know how it feels like, but it's not for everybody. Volatility is there.
Volatility is there, and volatility is the main roadblock for many people. And many people like us, are working, and on the side they are saving their money, so they want to take the lowest risk possible. That's why a very small allocation does make sense. And then over time, study it, understand it, and then enhance your allocation. And there was a study looking at the last 10 years. If you had 90% cash and 2% only Bitcoin, you would have outperformed the S&P 500,
Wow.
So very small allocation can make a big difference to your portfolio.
We've gone from literally pennies to the dollar to over 100,000 for a brief amount of days. Do you think Bitcoin has the 100x, 1,000x over the next, 20, 50x, 50 to 100 years?
Mauricio, I don't like to discuss price predictions. However, I like to look at adoption rates. And I think over time, price will follow adoption. Today, globally, the adoption is roughly at 5%, similar to where the internet was in 1995. And if you would have bought Amazon in 1995, you would have held it until today, you would be very happy. However, over the course of the last 30 years for Amazon, it went up and down, up and down. So we always overestimate what can happen in the next 12 months, but we underestimate what can happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So I am long-term very optimistic about Bitcoin. I think it has a great potential because of many reasons. And in the short term, the price may drop, it may grow, but people have to continue going on with their lives, working, and on the side, the same way they save money, allocate some of your savings to Bitcoin. It's a $2 trillion, and in the history of mankind, never an asset which reached 2 trillion went out and disappeared. So when people tell me it will go back to zero or it can go back to zero, it's possible, but I very much doubt it, because maybe we will buy at $0.1.
Measuring Bitcoin in dollars, I think, is fundamentally broken. It's the easy way for people to understand what it is, and they have to have some sort of a metric, right? But I had a podcast with Bram, Bitcoin for Millennials, and he said, 1 liter, 1 meter, 1 Bitcoin, right? And it stuck with me for some reasons, because I'm like, are things really going up in value, or is fiat going down? And it's probably a bit of both. If you think about gold, for example, which is the father of store of value, so far has been proved itself through time. And you think about how much you could purchase 100 years ago versus how much you can purchase today, well, you can get the same thing. You're not purchasing more. For example, if you wanted a handmade suit from a tailor, it would cost you an ounce of gold 100 years ago. If you now go to a tailor and you purchase a nice suit, guess how much it's going to cost you? An ounce of gold. So it's not going up. Everything else is going down, if it makes sense.
100%. And if you study the history of money and you see of the printing of dollars over the last 70, 80 years, an ounce of gold was representing few dollars 70 years ago. And today, an ounce of gold represents a pile of dollars like this. So there is really huge inflation happening, and that's why people did allocate to gold. And today, with everything happening at this moment with the tariffs and the potential disruption we hear from experts in the global financial system, and you see gold going up 26% in 2025. This never happened the last 20 years. There's something broken in the system. And therefore, you look at Bitcoin, the scarcest asset on earth with 21 million coins only. I should go and do some homework and spend time to understand it. And I think today, it's the asset with the highest potential and the lowest risk. Guys, the risks of Bitcoin a couple of years ago, many of them disappeared. When you have the US administration moving from a headwind to a tailwind, The president himself, his advisors are all pro-Bitcoin. The ETFs last year, the most successful ETFs ever launched in the US were the Bitcoin ETFs. SAB 121 repealed, which means banks today in the US can hold Bitcoin on behalf of their clients. Countries are now allocating to Bitcoin. There are today 117 bills in the United States across more than 30 states for bills discussing the introduction of Bitcoin as a treasury at the state level. And we may get in 2025 one or two states, potentially maybe before they decide at the federal level to buy Bitcoin, the famous 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. I don't know if this will ever happen or not, but at the state level, we may get a state. So there are so many tailwinds, there are so many, the risks are much lower. The regulatory risks are much lower than they were just 1 to 2 years ago.
I agree. I think you have to be extremely courageous to be bearish on Bitcoin at this point. The sentiment on crypto Twitter, I still call it Twitter, I'm sorry. Elon, I know you call it X, but for me it's still Twitter. When I go through my feed daily, the amount of people calling for $20,000 Bitcoin or this was the top kind of thing, again, they are trapped into a cycle, I think, and I would like also to ask you this, because like you said, if you zoom out and you don't care about time and money, and you want to save your energy and you want to save your wealth, it's the best choice you can possibly do. Who knows where Bitcoin is going to be in 2 or 3 years, in 20 years? It's going to be higher than where it is now, but most importantly, it will be more valuable than fiat. And that's my goal. My goal is not to get to a point where I say, oh, Bitcoin, 60 million, 18, who cares? As long as it can conserve my energy better than fiat, I'm winning.
100%. There's this simple chart showing you the price of a house in the US. Like 5 years ago, it was like maybe 100 Bitcoin. 2 years ago, 50 Bitcoin, and today it's like 10 Bitcoin, for example. So everything in Bitcoin is getting cheaper. And this is why people have to really study it, do the homework. But many people are a bit lazy.
I know.
Or they don't find the time, but at the end, it's their problem, to be honest. And also, it's very hard, by the way, when people come and tell me, Bitcoiners are lucky because they bought it 10, 15 years ago at whatever. But it's very difficult to hold. When you see the price fluctuation going up and down, we were discussing earlier, it's very stressful.
It is.
And you have to strongly believe in it and be very convinced to hold to this asset. And of course, we have a diversified portfolio where to manage our risks. But it's really a significant mistake to completely be not allocating today to Bitcoin.
Yeah, the amount of time I've heard, oh, you are so lucky. There is a quote I love, luck is truly when preparation meets opportunity. It's one of my favorite. Well, I like to say I am lucky, so I become what I think about, like if I'm projecting it. So of course I'm lucky. But then, like you said, are you willing to see your portfolio dropping 80%? We've both been there. We've been reading the books, listening to the podcast, producing even content, contributing, going to conferences, investing into this thing, not just with the dollar value, but even with time, which is my favorite asset, arguably the most scarce we have. There's now different set of players. We have Wall Street, we have the ETFs, we have governments, we have Bukele, we have, I like to call Trump a crypto president as opposed to the Bitcoin president, which is Bukele. But players have changed. So do you think we have a different game now?
Definitely. I think we have a different game. And to be honest, I'm shocked by the resilience of the Bitcoin price the last couple of weeks. When the S&P and the Nasdaq declined by 5% within 2 days, and Bitcoin stays above 80K, this has really shocked me. Yes, gold went up, but Bitcoin, I think a year or two ago, if the Nasdaq and the S&P would have declined by 5%, Bitcoin would have gone down to 50 or 60K. Today, it tells you the buyer, the holder of Bitcoin is a different buyer than the one who was there a couple of years ago. And this is why I think the famous 4-year cycles may not continue, simply because the game has changed. We moved from what we call weak hands, individual retail investors, to institutions, pension funds who are allocating to Bitcoin. And when a pension fund allocates to Bitcoin, it tells you that they have done a huge due diligence, huge homework before putting people's money into their the pension money into Bitcoin. So definitely it has changed. We may see drops again in the future, but I doubt it will be as severe as what happened in the past. And also today we went down from 109 to 75. It's like 25% drop. In the past bull markets, we had drops of 40%.
Yeah, in 2017 was brutal. I remember watching my portfolio crying like, what happened to this thing?
But that's why if you have nothing else, just watching Bitcoin, you may get nervous. Keep yourself busy with something else. Allocate to Bitcoin and don't watch it every day, you know. But again, to have this belief and this trust in Bitcoin, people have to do their homework. This is the only way. If you don't do your homework, you will not allocate and you will be tempted to sell. That's a challenge, you know.
It's a training, like you said, like anything else in life. You know, you can't expect to be a champion from day one. You have to go through a path, right? Learn your lessons, you know, pay your price of tuition, like I say. You know, like I was telling you in the elevator on the way here, I've gone through my not your keys, not your coins moment. I've learned my lessons. You know, you have to, there is no shortcut. Like I think at some point you will be tested one way or another. And the universe is going to ask you, have you learned the lesson? Show me. And you'll have to make some choices, right? Focus on the good stuff. That's my opinion, which is Bitcoin. You can play with something. We can go to Vegas and smoke a cigar and play roulette. I don't have any problem with it, as long as I know that I'm doing it. I'm not going to Vegas and gamble my house, right? That would be irresponsible, to say the least. So as long as you know what you're doing, I think it makes sense. Do you have also a portion of, let's say, altcoins in your portfolio, or you are honey badgering 100% Bitcoin?
I don't have any altcoins. I only have Bitcoin because there is day and night difference. Altcoins for me is like investing in a .com company many years ago, 30 years ago, and it's like maybe a gambling game. You don't know who will win, where will be the Amazon, the Google of this world. And this is why I don't touch it. Bitcoin is simply a store of value. And I don't have the time to follow the altcoins. I'm very busy with what I do as a full-time job. And that's why I see it only as a store of value. However, I spend some time studying it on a regular basis, following the news, simply because I'm excited about the birth of this new industry and this new technology. And today, for young people, there are two major industries people cannot disregard, which is AI, and in general, I would say blockchain, Bitcoin, crypto. I put them all under one umbrella. And people have to study this. They cannot disregard it. When you see today 100 publicly listed companies adopting Bitcoin on the balance sheets, on the treasury, and the best performing asset, the best performing stocks in 2024 in the US was MicroStrategy because of the Bitcoin allocation. In Japan, the best performing stock was MetaPlanet because of the allocation. And now you have Jet King in India. You have the blockchain group in France. You have a company also in China. I forgot the name now. So really, this is like the beginning of this movement. And individuals should really take the time and study it. But it's not easy. It does take time and effort.
How long do you think we will have until, we've seen Microsoft attempt to buy Bitcoin, right, the corporate level. It didn't go as planned per se, but how long do we have, do you think, before Apples and Googles are going to say, wait, we have trillions of dollars in the bank doing nothing, getting destroyed by inflation, losing purchasing power. What if we take 2% and we buy Bitcoin? Are we far away? Are we 10 years away? Are we 6 months away?
Yes, the voting of the Microsoft shareholder was disappointing. However, for me, still, it was a great news that they decided to vote for it and they were forced to make this move. And this is the beginning. Tomorrow we'll see Amazon, Meta, others going through this process. And ultimately, sooner or later, one of them will get on board. I think it will take some time, simply because of the fiduciary duties of board members, the regulation, the legal implication, the risks of board members, and the time it takes to educate relatively senior board members. We saw how much effort it took to change the politicians in the US and the administration. And now, all of a sudden, there's a beautiful move supporting the industry. The same thing will happen. The day we have one entity, then automatically others will follow. Similarly to what happened with the ETFs, I believe what happened for retail investors with the ETFs launch led by BlackRock in January 2024, the same thing will happen with corporate adoption the day one big, large institution adopts Bitcoin. Because today, the 100 publicly listed companies have somehow a business related to Bitcoin. And the day you have a company without any business related to Bitcoin adopting it, then it will be a beautiful, development.
I agree. It takes longer to move because such a humongous corporation, but when they move, it moves faster, like an elephant leaping forward, And that's why we are saying it is early for these reasons. How can it be late if Apple hasn't invested yet? I am ready to gamble whatever I have, which Apple is playing with the Apple payments on blockchain, because it's a new technology. Like, after all, it's the same pattern through history. We've seen with cars, with electricity, with the internet, any technology get friction in the beginning.
Definitely. And now MasterCard just announced you can pay with Bitcoin through your MasterCard card. I didn't hear about Visa, but most likely Visa will follow very soon. And the same will be for corporations.
I was talking with Da Vinci. We have a live show Monday to Friday. I was telling you earlier. And I said to him, do you remember when the cards like Visa and MasterCard started off? And nobody wanted to keep the cash in the pocket, the plastic thing. I want cash in my pocket.
I would like to compare today the transfer of money with Bitcoin. Today, if you send money through a bank from a country to another country, it takes you 48 to 72 hours. It costs you so much money. When you send it through Bitcoin, it costs nothing. I compare this to when free calls started in 96, 97. The telecommunications companies in the US did so much lobbying, spent so much money against it. But then the authorities, the administration authorized it. And then who would have said that we can make free calls? We forget. This was completely unexpected at that time. And the same thing with transfer of money. Transfer of money will become free of charge. Similarly to now, the way we communicate free of charge. Data is very cheap.
That's such a good point. I remember the SMS days where it would cost, you had to have a package and there was the amount of SMS that you could send with the package, and then WhatsApp came in and destroyed everything, right? It's fast and free communication. These things, they move fast, super fast, and they compound in velocity, which means in 10 years from now, I think we're gonna look back and say, damn, trying to explain to someone that back in our days, this is how you called people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but I am expecting stablecoin to play a crucial role.
Huge. I fully agree. And the beauty with stablecoin, they are backed by US treasuries. So this is where the US government is very likely to fully support the stablecoin developments, because when we see China and other countries buying less of US treasuries, this is a great development for the dollar in the future.
I mean, imagine you are the Trump administration who just won the election, super hyped. You look into Tether. They have less than 100 employees. They make billions of dollars a year. They can propagate the dominance of the dollar throughout the planet. They can bank people in Africa into a click.
There is a 34% penetration of Bitcoin in the UAE. I think it's maybe the highest in the world. And it's great to see this. And I think many countries will be following gradually. But we are very lucky with the regulation and the support of the administration and the authorities in Dubai and the UAE in general.
And I agree, Dubai is extremely friendly to the UAE in general. But I'm expecting banks over the next 6 months to a year to start opening to stablecoin. And imagine when, from your bank account, you have access to a different market.
100%. And I think also when banks will make it much easier for people to hold the Bitcoin in the banks, and the Bitcoin can be used as a collateral for you when you buy a house or when you take a loan. This is a huge development coming up very soon. And this is why people look only at a very short-term period, and they get disappointed if the price has been stable at 80K the last couple of weeks, but they forget where we were a year ago, and they forget to look at adoption. And this is what the most interesting part is, looking at the adoption, the developments, the countries, the companies adopting it, the banks, supermarkets like Spar, for example. Those are really exciting stories for the birth of this industry, And for me, maybe having gone through the experience of building the energy drink category in the early 90s, where it was forbidden. There were so many rumors, energy drink can kill you, it's very dangerous, it's very unhealthy, and whatever. And today, it's everywhere.
It's like nothing happened.
So it's like 100%. And those rumors were there because of lack of knowledge, lack of studying, lack of understanding. And the same thing today is with Bitcoin and the crypto industry. And you cannot say that all those politicians and bankers and BlackRock and institutions are all, stupid. It can't be. When I go to the conferences of Bitcoin in the US or in Europe or here in Abu Dhabi, I'm always impressed, Maurizio, by the talent, the intellect, the smart people. It's very, very impressive. That's the main reason why I go to conferences, is to feel the energy and intellect and the experience, which gives you a lot of reassurance.
I agree, and that's why by definition is an opportunity, because it's early, right? Like there's going to be a point where Bitcoin will be less of an opportunity, I think, because more people are going to be involved in this, right? So there's a reason why I believe now is the perfect time. I mean, you can still front run the majority of the institutions. Like only a few companies like Strategy, Metaplanet, the one we named earlier, are gone in, but many companies have not dived into this yet.
100%. I think it's maybe one of the few times in history where individuals can get ahead of Wall Street and banks and institutions. Simply study it, look at it, be curious. And today, in today's world, we all have to be intellectually curious when you see so much innovation, so much disruption happening. I'm spending a lot of time on AI on a daily basis because of the major innovation happening. So the world, I think we will see much more innovation the next 10 years than we saw the last 50 years. It's never ending. And what will we do as humans in 5 years next to the AI machine? I don't know, but a lot of things will look very different.
And I think AI is going to play a vital role, and I think AI is going to exchange Bitcoin one another because they can have a bank account.
We'll see if AI agents will be using Bitcoin or something else. But I'm really curious to see the whole development of agentic AI and the role of humans. And when I say to employees and people around me, we should not be worried or nervous. We should simply embrace AI.
I agree.
And feel like we're much more empowered. So many people are becoming more creative today because of AI. It takes huge energy to stay up to speed. I've been following AI for maybe 2 years, and I used to get monthly news, then weekly, and now daily. On a daily basis, I have news alerts. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Now also the power of robots. What can robots do? And there will be, when you hear Elon saying there will be 10 billion robots, more than human beings, in 10 years down the road, it's very, very interesting days.
I think many people are going to get, quote, replaced by AI. Some of the jobs are no-brainers, like personal assistant, all these things, translators, graphic designers, developer to a degree.
Yes, it's called vibe coding. Vibe coding is when you write in English, and then the AI creates the app without you having to code it, itself. You don't have to be a coder anymore. So anybody can create an app nowadays, And even I was reading a report now, like a significant amount of doctors, for example, when they review a diagnostic for a patient, they check it, they take that diagnostic, review it by AI before sending it to the client, because now people are all empowered like us. We receive the doctor's report, the scan, whatever it is, and we can double check what the doctor said, And when in the US you have like 4,000 new medical studies issued on a daily basis, every day, how can a doctor stay up to speed, And therefore AI has much more knowledge than any given doctor, And coming back to Bitcoin somehow, given the level of innovation and speed of change and disruption, what I say to some companies is there will be more BlackBerry and Kodak and Blockbusters, those companies which went bust because of innovation. There will be more of them in the near future because of AI. And therefore, when a company adopts Bitcoin, it's a kind of insurance. It's a kind of securing you are defending the return of shareholders, and you can benchmark the return of investments in your business versus the investment into Bitcoin. So boards and corporations have to see at all this AI wave coming, and you can say, I will allocate some of my cash to Bitcoin as a security, as an insurance,
That's a good point. I mean, Blockbuster, Kodak, those brands have not innovate. That's why they're gone extinct. And if I'm not mistaken, digital photography was invented by Kodak. But they thought, oh, this is going to destroy our business, so we're not going to pursue it. And then what happens? Well, they died because the digital photography has gone so much more popular.
100%.
Many people, and I would like to ask you this, many people, they don't like to be in charge. They don't want to have the keys. They don't want to have the responsibility to manage their own economy. So there will always be a service that is going to take custody of your Bitcoin, I think.
Maurizio, definitely. And I think here maybe I have a different opinion than many of the OGs or Bitcoin maximalists. I think in the future there'll be more Bitcoin held by banks and institutions than maybe, in cold wallet, because all those institutions and those corporations and pension funds will not go through the hassle and the risks of having, a cold wallet. It's too cumbersome. And therefore, many of them will allocate to ETFs, as we saw it. Many of them will have their Bitcoin in the bank, like they had their investments the last hundreds of years. And as those institutions will invest much more than what retail and the individual investors did in the past, this will be the majority in the future. However, we always need to have a certain part, earned cold storage, for, I would say, the health of the network,
That's why some people are saying, oh, the ETF is a bad thing. I disagree, because without the ETF, we wouldn't be at
100%.
$85,000.
It's part of, I would say, the asset maturing. And cold storage was great and is still great for some people. But there are many people who don't have the energy and time. It's risky also.
Selim, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Great chatting.
Next time in the day.
Thank you, definitely.
Guys, as always in the description, I will link Selim details. Go and make sure to check him out.
Thank you. Great meeting you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one.